Entitled family demands I give them my house. You won't believe what happened next. The weight of their words crashed over me like a tidal wave. You're single and have no children. You should give your house to your sister. Give her the keys and move out. It's a moment etched in my memory, the kind that replays in your mind like a broken record. Of course, I refused, but the fallout was far from over, and the secrets that would unravel were darker than I could ever have imagined. My name is Carla, and my life has always been overshadowed. My younger sister, Sarah, burst into the world like a supernova, all golden curls and dimpled smiles. From day one, she had our parents wrapped around her little finger. I was the quiet one, more interested in my chemistry set than in making friends. I still remember my 10th birthday, having hoped for a new microscope, but instead, I got a frilly dress that made me look like a cupcake. But Mom, I hate dresses, I protested, completely missing the point. As we grew older, the divide only widened. Did you hear? Sarah's been nominated for prom queen. Mom gushed over dinner one night. That's great, I replied, trying to muster some enthusiasm. Hi, I won first place in the science fair today. Oh, that's nice, was the response. My achievements, no matter how significant, seemed to vanish into thin air. The state science fair in my senior year was my moment to shine. I'd spent months perfecting my project on sustainable biofuels. When they announced the winners, I could hardly believe my ears. First place goes to Carla Johnson. I was ecstatic. Finally, something even my parents couldn't ignore. Or so I thought. That's great, honey, Mom said distractedly when I told her the news. But we can't make it to the awards ceremony. Sarah has a dance recital that day, and you know how important that is to her. I watched them fuss over Sarah's costume and makeup, while my trophy gathered dust on a shelf. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but one I was getting used to. When the acceptance letters started rolling in, I could barely contain my excitement. A full scholarship to a prestigious university was more than I dared to hope for. Mom, Dad, I got a full ride, everything. I burst into the living room. That's nice. Sarah, didn't you say you needed help picking out a prom dress? Just like that, my big moment was brushed aside. Again. But it's a full scholarship. I tried again, my voice smaller this time. Good joke, kiddo. Can't have you showing up to prom in just anything, can we? I watched them pile into the car, a familiar feeling of being overlooked washing over me. Despite the lack of fanfare from my family, I packed my bags and headed off to college with high hopes. For the first time, I was free from Sarah's shadow. College was a revelation. Suddenly, my passion for science wasn't weird or nerdy, it was celebrated. I threw myself into my studies with renewed vigor, determined to make the most of this opportunity. Sarah, on the other hand, followed the path our parents had always dreamed of for her. She enrolled in the local community college. College is so hard. I don't know how you do it, Carla, she'd complain, spending more time partying than studying. Then, one day, the news arrived. I'm engaged, she squealed over the phone. Mike proposed last night. Isn't it romantic? Her high school sweetheart. Great, Sarah, have you set a date? We're thinking right after graduation. Carla, it's going to be perfect. You'll be my maid of honor, won't you? The wedding was exactly as you'd expect. Isn't this perfect? Mom whispered to me during the reception. This is what every mother dreams of for her daughter. I wanted to ask if she'd ever dreamed anything for me, but I held my tongue. As I threw myself into my studies and, later, my career, Sarah's life continued down the expected path. Within a year of her wedding, she announced her first pregnancy. I'm going to be a grandmother, Mom squealed over the phone. Carla, isn't it wonderful? I murmured my congratulations, trying to stifle the familiar pang of envy. When are you going to settle down, Carla? When will you give us grandchildren? Emma arrived 9 months later. I flew home for the weekend, dutifully playing the role of the doting aunt. You know, Carla, you're not getting any younger. Don't you want this for yourself? I gritted my teeth. I'm focused on my career right now, Dad. Meanwhile, I was making significant strides in my career as a biotechnologist. Long hours and hard work paid off, and by 30, I was a senior researcher. My parents' response to this news was lukewarm at best. It was around this time that I decided to buy a house. When I finally found the perfect place, a beautiful 4-bedroom house in a great neighborhood, I announced it during our next phone call. There was a pause on the other end of the line. A house, all by yourself? Yes, all by myself, I said, my excitement deflating a little. It's a great investment, but it's such a big house for one person. What will you do with all that space? I'll enjoy it, Mom. It's mine, she sighed. I suppose if that's what you want. Did I tell you? Emma lost her first tooth yesterday. And just like that, the conversation shifted back to Sarah and her family. The months following my house purchase were a whirlwind of work and settling into my new home. I threw myself into decorating, turning each room into a reflection of my personality. It was during this time that I started to feel a shift in my family dynamics. The usual calls from my parents became less frequent, almost as if I'd disappointed them by choosing a path that didn't involve marriage and children. Then, one evening, I received a call from my mother. "Carla, dear," she said, her voice sickly sweet, "we're having a family dinner next week. You'll be there, won't you? We need to talk." I agreed, my suspicions growing with each passing second. In my family, "we need to talk" was never a good sign. The night of the dinner arrived, and I pulled up to my parents' house with a sense of foreboding. Dinner was a tense affair. My parents kept exchanging glances, and Mike, Sarah's husband, kept clearing his throat as if he wanted to say something but thought better of it. Finally, as we were finishing dessert, my father cleared his throat. "Carla, we need to talk about something important." "Here it comes," I thought. "What's up?" He glanced at my mother. "Well, you see, sweetie, we've been thinking. That big house of yours." I felt my hackles rise. "Dad, we've been over this. I like my house. It's mine." "Yes," my mother jumped in. "What your father is trying to say is that Sarah and her family need more space. The kids are growing." Sarah, who had been unusually quiet throughout the meal, was suddenly very interested in her plate. "And we think," my mother continued, her voice sickly sweet, "you should give your house to Sarah and her family. Just give them the keys and move out." For a moment, I was speechless. I looked around the table, waiting for someone to yell "gotcha," and reveal it was all a joke. But all I saw were expecting faces. "You can't be serious," I finally managed to stammer out. "Now, Carla," my mother said, her tone patronizing, "don't be selfish. Sarah needs her own space more than you do." "Selfish," I repeated, my voice rising. "How is it selfish to want to keep the house I worked hard for and paid for myself?" I turned to my sister. "And what do you have to say about this, Sarah?" She shrugged, finally meeting my eyes. "Well, it would be nice to have more space for the kids." I couldn't believe what I was hearing, my own family asking me to give up my home, acting like I was the unreasonable one for refusing. "No," I said firmly, standing up, "absolutely not. I'm not giving up my house." As I grabbed my coat and headed for the door, I heard my father call out, "Think about it, Carla. Family should come first." I kept replaying the conversation in my head, unable to believe my family's audacity. How could they even think to ask such a thing? My phone buzzed constantly with messages and calls from my parents and Sarah, each one filled with guilt and manipulation. On the third day, as I was trying to focus on work, my phone lit up with a call from a number I didn't recognize. Figuring it wasn't family, I answered. "Hello, is this Carla?" A woman's voice came through. "Yes, who's this?" "This is your Aunt Mildred. I can't believe what I'm hearing about you, young lady. Your poor sister needs a home for her children. Shame on you." I felt my blood pressure rising. In my day, family helped family. We didn't hoard our resources like misers. "I'm not hoarding anything," I snapped. "It's my house, I bought it with my own money." "Well," she huffed, "if you're not going to use all that space, you should at least consider donating your eggs. It's not like you're using them anyway." I was so shocked I couldn't speak. "Excuse me, you heard me," she said, friendlier than before. "You're not getting any younger, you know, TikTok." I hung up without another word, my hands shaking with anger. How dare she, how dare any of them, but it didn't stop there. Over the next few days, I was bombarded with calls and messages from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Each one had an opinion on what I should do with my house and my life. My great-aunt Edna left a voicemail. "Carla, dear, I just wanted to say it's not too late to find a nice man and settle down. Then you'd need that big house." It was relentless. Every ring of my phone brought a new judgment, a new guilt trip. I felt like I was going crazy. I threw myself into work, staying late at the lab just to avoid going home to more messages. It was during one of these late nights at work that I got sick. Nothing serious, just a bad cold, but enough that my boss insisted I take a few days off to recover. So there I was, curled up on my couch with a box of tissues, feeling miserable both physically and emotionally. My phone had been mercifully quiet for a few hours, and I was just starting to relax when I heard a noise at my front door, like someone was fumbling with the lock. My heart started racing. Was someone trying to break in? I got up as quietly as I could and crept towards the door. Through the peephole, I saw familiar figures. It was my parents and sister standing at my front door. Rage bubbled inside me and I ripped the door open, startling the people on the other side. "What the hell are you doing?" I bellowed, their faces resembling deer caught in headlights, frozen as I caught them in the act of trying to break into my home. My mother was the first to recover. "Carla, dear, we were just worried about you. You haven't been answering your phone. So you decided to break into my house?" I couldn't keep the incredulity out of my voice. My father, at least, had the decency to look embarrassed. "We didn't think you'd be home. We thought you'd be at work. And that makes it okay. What were you planning to do? Move Sarah in while I was gone?" "Carla, you're being hysterical," my mother started, her voice taking on the patronizing tone I knew so well. "We were just going to wait for you to come home." I noticed for the first time that there was a car parked behind them, loaded with boxes and furniture. My blood ran cold as I realized the full extent of their plan. "You were going to move in," I said, my voice flat. "You were actually going to move into my house without my permission." "Carla," my mother started, her voice taking on the patronizing tone I knew so well. "We discussed this. Sarah needs the space more than you do. We thought if we just took the initiative." "You thought wrong," I cut her off. "This is my house. I bought it with my own money. You have no right to it." Just then, I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. My neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, was standing on her porch, looking concerned. I nodded to her, grateful for her concern. Turning back to my family, I said, "I've called the police. You need to leave." "My own family." As if on cue, a police car pulled up to the curb. "Is there a problem here?" one of the officers asked. I took a deep breath. "Yes, officer. These people were attempting to break into my home." "Carla," my mother gasped. "How could you?" The officers looked at my family. "Is this true?" My father started to stammer out an explanation, but the officer held up a hand. "Sir, attempting to enter a property without the owner's permission is a serious offense. I'm going to have to ask you all to leave immediately." As the officers escorted my family off my property, I stood in the doorway, shaking. "You'll regret this, Carla," Sarah called over her shoulder as they were leaving. "You'll end up old and alone." I slammed the door shut, sliding down to sit on the floor, my back against it. Tears started to flow freely, now a mixture of hurt and relief. My phone had fallen silent. No more calls from distant relatives, no more guilt-tripping messages. It was as if I'd been excommunicated from the family. Part of me was relieved, but another part ached for the connection, dysfunctional as it had been. It was in this tumultuous state that I received an unexpected message. It was from my Aunt Maggie, my mother's sister. It read, "I need to see you. Meet me tomorrow at Café Bleu at 2 p.m. Intrigued and desperate for any kind of support, I agreed. The next day, I found myself sitting across from Aunt Maggie in a cozy corner of Café Bleu. She looked older than I remembered, but her eyes were sharp and kind. "Carla," she began, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand, "I'm so sorry for what you've been through. Your mother called me, but there's more to the story than you know. That's why I asked you to meet me." My curiosity was piqued. "What do you mean?" Aunt Maggie took a deep breath. "Sarah and Mike have been living beyond their means for years. Luxury cars, designer clothes. It's been a facade." I shook my head in disbelief. "But why? It's worse than that," Maggie continued. "Mike has a gambling problem. A bad one. He's been secretly draining their accounts for years." The pieces started to fall into place. The desperate attempt to get my house, the constant pressure. "But what about Mom and Dad?" I asked, my voice trembling. "They lost a significant amount of money in a pyramid scheme a few years back. They've been barely keeping their heads above water. They were planning to move in with Sarah and Mike as soon as they got your house." I sat back, stunned. "How do you know all this?" "I work at the bank where they all have accounts," Maggie explained. "I noticed some suspicious activity and started digging. When I confronted your mother about it, she cut me out of the family." My mind was reeling. All this time, while I'd been working hard and saving, my family had been digging themselves into a hole. "Carla," Maggie said gently, "I know this is a lot to take in, but I think it's time we did something about this situation. If you're willing, I have an idea." Armed with the information Aunt Maggie had shared, we hired a private investigator, a no-nonsense woman named Diana who came highly recommended. For weeks, Diana followed Sarah and Mike, gathering evidence. Finally, she called us in for a meeting. What she revealed left us speechless. Mike, Sarah's husband, had been leading a double life. He was involved in an affair with none other than my cousin Jenny, Uncle Bob's daughter. "He's been funneling money to her for months," Diana explained, showing us bank statements and hotel receipts, expensive gifts, weekend getaways, you name it. "But where did he get the money?" I asked, though I feared I already knew the answer. Diana's face grew grim. "From his gambling wins. And from your parents." Aunt Maggie and I exchanged shocked glances. We decided to host a family gathering at my house, under the guise of wanting to reconcile. The day of the gathering arrived, and I watched as my family members trickled in, their faces a mix of curiosity and smugness. They probably thought I was going to cave to their demands. Once everyone was seated, I stood up, my heart pounding. "I've called you all here today because there are some things you need to know," I began. I laid out everything: the financial troubles, the gambling, the affair. With each revelation, I watched the color drain from their faces. Sarah jumped up, tears streaming down her face. "Mike, tell them it's not true." But Mike was already halfway to the door, his face contorted with rage. Uncle Bob caught him by the collar. "That's my daughter you've been fooling around with." My parents sat in stunned silence, the reality of their exposed financial ruin seemingly more devastating than the fact that they had tried to steal my house. "We had no idea, Carla. We're so sorry." The truth was out. The lies and manipulations were exposed. In the weeks that followed, our family was turned upside down. Sarah filed for divorce. With nowhere else to go, she and the kids moved back in with our parents. The bank foreclosed on their house, and they were forced to downsize to a small rental, all 5 of them crammed into a space smaller than my living room. As for me, I watched it all unfold from a distance, a sense of detached sadness washing over me. I cut all ties with my family. "You're doing the right thing, Carla," Aunt Maggie assured me one afternoon over coffee. "It's not easy, but you deserve peace." I felt grateful for Maggie, the family I chose when my blood relatives had let me down. Our weekly coffee dates became a cornerstone of my new life. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself settling into a new routine. Without the constant drama and demands of my family, I had time to focus on myself, my career, and my own happiness. "You know," Maggie said to me one day, "why don't you try something new? Get out of your comfort zone and find something you love to do." With her encouragement, I decided to join a local rock climbing group. It was far outside my comfort zone, but I was determined to push myself. It was there that I met Alex. On our first date, I felt my heart skip a beat. "First time here?" he asked. His smile was as disarming as the blue in the sky. I felt my cheeks flush a bit and offered, "Is it that obvious? I noticed you were struggling a bit." He chuckled, but his gaze was genuine. We struck up a conversation, and I was immediately drawn to his kind eyes and easygoing nature. As we talked, I learned he was a wildlife photographer with a passion for capturing the beauty of nature. He was so much more understanding than I could have ever hoped for. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of excitement about the possibility of a relationship. Alex was adventurous and understood the complexities of family dynamics in a way few others could. Complex family dynamics bringing us closer as a result instead of tearing us apart like they had with my actual blood relatives. "Carla," she said to me one day, her eyes misty, "I want you to know something. I've changed my will. I'm leaving everything to you." I could no longer hold back tears, a mixture of both joy and grief, and expressed my thanks. As I hugged her, tears streaming down my face, I knew that I was finally free to live my life on my own terms, surrounded by the people who truly loved and supported me. I was ready to embrace whatever the future held. Do you think I handled this situation correctly? Was I wrong to cut ties with my family, even after everything they did? I value your perspective and would appreciate your honest thoughts on whether my actions were justified given the circumstances. And if there's anything you think I could have done differently, as I'm still wrestling with the complex feelings that stem from this whole ordeal and could use an outside viewpoint to help me gain more clarity regarding what happened.